All right. Well, if you've been with us on Wednesday night, we are continuing our study of the book of Esther. And tonight we'll be in chapter 7 of Esther, if you want to find your place there. So where we left off last time, Esther has summoned the courage to go in before the king, and he extends the scepter to her. He says, ask whatever you want. I'll give it up to half the kingdom. And she says, I really would like for you to come to dinner, you and Haman. So King Ahasuerus comes with Haman to a dinner prepared by Queen Esther, and they're at the dinner. The king says, okay, what do you want? I'll give it to you up to half the kingdom. She says, what? Come to dinner tomorrow night. So seemingly kind of a stall tactic there. So it's all set up that the next night the king and Haman will come to dinner as guests of Esther. And in the meantime, Haman devises this plot to hang Mordecai, the Jew. But before he can get that accomplished, the king is made aware of the fact that Mordecai had saved his life. Nothing was done to honor Mordecai. And so the king asked Haman when he comes in, what should we do to honor this man that I want to honor? And Haman, being the prideful sort that he is, says to himself, who would the king want to honor more than me? So he starts all this elaborate, lavish stuff. Oh, let him be dressed in royal robes and a crown and a scepter, and put on the king's horse and march through the streets with, as one of the king's noblemen says, so it shall be done to the man that the king wants to honor. And the king says, hey, that's a good idea, Haman, you do that for Mordecai. And so that's where we left off. So the parade has the Mordecai parade has just ended, and now they're going back to Esther's for dinner, the king and Haman and Esther, and things are coming to a head in the story of Esther. So let's take a look at this. I'm in verse 1 of Esther chapter 7. So the king and Haman went to dine with Queen Esther, and on the second day at the banquet of wine, the king again said to Esther, what is your petition, Queen Esther? It shall be granted you. And what is your request? Up to half the kingdom it shall be done. Then Queen Esther answered and said, if I have found favor in your sight, O king, and if it pleases the king, let my life be given me at my petition, and my people at my request. For we have been sold, my people and I, to be destroyed, to be killed, and to be annihilated. Had we been sold as male and female slaves, I would have held my tongue, although the enemy could never compensate for the king's loss. All right, so Haman is now at this banquet, but he's not nearly as giddy as he was to start with. Why has Haman's mood changed? Yeah, he's the one who had to parade Mordecai around, and his wife has already told him, if you've already begun to fall before him. So he's already begun to fall before Mordecai. The die has been cast, if you will, and so he kind of sees the handwriting on the wall, but he's at the banquet nonetheless. Now, it takes an incredible amount of courage for Esther, even though the king is saying, ask whatever you want, I'll give it to you up to half my kingdom, just say it. it still takes an incredible amount of courage for her to come out and say what she's really wanting. Why? She was a Jew, and who was the one that was out to get the Jews? Haman. Yeah, exactly. She's sitting there staring at him face to face. Have you ever had to do that? Have you ever had to call out someone while they're sitting there looking at you? It takes an incredible amount of courage to be able to do that. And here's just a teenage girl that somehow, by the grace of God, is able to muster the courage to say, he's the one. No, nobody did until now. She's about to reveal it. Because Mordecai had said, let's keep this quiet, So no one, the king didn't, no one did at this point. So Esther waits, she stalls, if you will. By the first time, he says, what do you want? She says, well, come to dinner. Then at dinner, he says, now tell me what you want. She says, I want you to come to dinner tomorrow night. And so now finally, she's going to make her real request known. But what did she gain by waiting? So, that was kind of before before she goes into the king. But certainly you would assume that there's praying going on during that time as well, for sure. Yeah, the king. So she's playing her feminine charms, up to their full potential, because there's one thing that a man can't resist, and that's mystery in women. And so, she's being mysterious. What is this girl want? What is this beautiful girl that I was smart enough to make my queen? What is it that she wants? Surely it must be more than just dinner. And so both the king's curiosity and his benevolence are at their greatest state, because he's saying, just ask me, say whatever it is, I promise you. You can kind of see how, hear that the tone of this conversation. I promise you, whatever you ask me, I'll give it to you, even if it's half my kingdom. Who does that sound? That's vaguely familiar. Who else said that? Herod said that, and it cost him the head of John the Baptist, remember? So kings should be careful when they make these blanket statements, I'll give you whatever you want up to half the kingdom. Interesting that it was at the charms of a beautiful young lady that Herod made the same offer. So men, there's a lesson there. Beware of the wiles of charming young ladies. They've caused many a men to lose half their kingdom. So that's a joke. It's a joke. Laugh. Ha ha. Okay. Nobody's laughing. Wow. You're just going to drive a tent peg through my skull. I know. The wood chipper. That's right. You got the wood chipper. That's right. So how does Esther effectively bargain for her people here? When she finally does make her request known, what does she say? She says, I'm asking for my life and the life of my people. And what does she say? If we would only been sold as slaves, I wouldn't have said anything. Because it's sure really us being slaves, that's not worth, bothering a king that's as important and as busy as you are. But, they want to kill us all. They want to exterminate us as a race of people, basically. So she's laying it on pretty thick at this point, If we'd only been, she's the queen of the most powerful empire in the world. And this is what she says to the king. King, if we would have only been sold as slaves, I wouldn't have even bothered you. I wouldn't have even troubled you over such a trivial matter as that. But, it's more than that. He wants to kill us. He wants to, extinguish us from the earth kind of thing. Questions on those verses? All right, let's look on into verse 5. So King Ahasuerus answered and said to Queen Esther, "Who is he and where is he who would dare presume in his heart to do such a thing?" Now watch the courage of this young girl here. Esther said, "The adversary and enemy is this wicked Haman." So Haman was terrified before the king and queen. I bet he was. So here Esther unmasked Haman to be the villain that he is. But in unmasking Haman, she also unmasked whom? Herself. Because she has to say, he's out to kill me and my people because I'm a Jew. Now the king has a lot to process. The king has to process the fact that my queen is a Jew. He has to process the fact that I just passed an edict to kill all the Jews. And he has to process the fact that the one who made me do it is, one of my most trusted servants in the kingdom, who apparently is a worm and I should have never trusted at all. So all this now is being going through the king's mind. And in verse 5, the king asked this question: "Who is he and where is he who would dare to presume to do such a thing in his heart?" So what does this tell us about the king? He's not really with it. Like, he's not really on top of what's going on in his kingdom. So he makes no connection to the edict that he passed to, what does it say? Kill, annihilate, and do something else to destroy, kill, and annihilate. We want to make sure we get them, all bases covered. We're not just going to kill them, we're going to destroy, kill, and annihilate them. So he makes no connection with this edict that he passed and the plight of Esther's people. Now, what does that say about a king who can pass an edict so flippantly to extinguish an entire race of people and then really doesn't even think about it after that? I mean, are they so consumed with evil that they don't understand? Or are they just so preoccupied with their self that they're not in touch with the world around them or the kingdom that they're supposed to be serving? Right. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the way that the king seems to approach it, isn't it? And he's completely naive to the murderous plot taking place in his own kingdom. From chapter 1, we said, here's a king that really doesn't seem to be in touch with what's going on in his kingdom. And then we see another evidence of that here, that here, seemingly under his very nose, entire race of his subjects are about to be killed, and it completely escapes him. And it's being perpetrated by Haman, his second in command, so to speak, and not for any good of the kingdom, but just for personal vengeance on Haman's part. And the king seems to be totally oblivious to it. So, I don't know how the secular history books will record the reign of Xerxes or Ahasuerus. But certainly Scripture doesn't paint him to be all that bright of a leader. If you go to West Point or you go to, Harvard and study political science, you're probably not going to see Xerxes, Ahasuerus, put up as a model of, if you want to see a great leader, just be like him. He's probably not the the role model that you want to follow. Questions on those verses? All right, let's look on into verse 7. We have a short chapter tonight. Then the king arose in his wrath from the banquet of wine and went into the palace garden, but Haman stood before Queen Esther, pleading for his life, for he saw that evil was determined against him by the king. When the king returned from the palace garden to the place of the banquet of wine, Haman had fallen across the couch where Esther was. Then the king said, "Will he also assault the queen while I'm in the house?" And as the word left the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face. Now Harbona, one of the eunuchs, said to the king, "Look, the gallows 50 cubits high, which Haman made for Mordecai, who spoke good on the king's behalf, is standing at the house of Haman." Then the king said, "Hang him on it." And they hanged Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai, and then the king's wrath subsided. Okay, so the king says, "Man, this is too much. I got to have time to think. Man, I found out that my queen is a Jew. I find out that, Haman is a snake. I find out that a whole group of people is about to be exterminated from my kingdom. I need time to think." And so he goes out. You get the irony here. I told you, Esther is a book full of divine irony. So while the king is out trying to get his thoughts together, Haman realizes, this is not good for me. My only hope, my only chance is to beg for my life before the queen. And so he decides to do that. And so apparently at the banquet hall, they would be reclining on couches as they ate. So he goes before Esther. It's just Haman and Esther left in the banquet hall room. And he falls on the couch and he starts begging for Esther, "Please, please, Queen Esther, have mercy on me." So the king comes back in. All right, I got to do something. I got my head cleared. I got to do something. I know that. He comes back in. And what he sees, now here's the irony. What he sees is Haman, who he's already angry about, is now falling all over his queen. So he says, "What, is this nut now going to attack the queen right here in my presence?" So in an attempt to plead for his life, he actually seals the deal. So that's the irony there. They come in and immediately cover Haman's head. This would be, why are they covering his head? Yeah, they're going to execute him. I mean, that's what they do when they execute somebody. They cover their head. And then Harbona says, "Look, the gallows that he made for Mordecai, who spoke good on the king's behalf, is standing at his house, 50 cubits high." So by this, true or false, that indicates that the king's officials loved Haman and wanted the king to extend mercy to him. No. Like, "Look, there's a gallows. How about we hang him on it?" Yeah, that's a good idea. Apparently nobody liked Haman. He was one he didn't have a lot of friends. Like, the only friend he had in the kingdom apparently was the king, and he messed that up. So there you go. And so Haman is executed, and there's irony even in that. And what's the irony here? Yeah, he's hanged on the gallows that he builds for Mordecai. So, be careful. There's great spiritual truth there. Be careful the gallows you build for others. You may end up swinging on them yourself. So, questions on those verses? I gave you a couple little theological application questions here. What spiritual truths do you see in these verses? What stands out to you here? Don't what? Don't cross God's. Don't mess with God's people. Absolutely. Here's what I said. You could draw a lot of different things from it, but that's what I said. Number one, life turns on a dime. You know, one day, Haman had it all, and Mordecai had nothing and was about to be exterminated with all of his people. Literally, in a day's time. Mordecai is exalted to the second highest position in the land, and Haman is executed on the gallows that he was going to execute Mordecai on. So life turns on a dime. Exactly. And I had that actually written down. You reap what you sow. That's right. That's good. And of course, as we said, the gallows you build for others, you often will swing on yourself. So be careful about that. And good triumphs over evil. Always does. You know, evil may win a battle here and there, but good will always win out in the end. So, all right. Now, these we're going to do a little psychological. That's really not. We're going to do a little thing, and you tell me like the first word that comes to your mind. All right. With these characters, King Ahasuerus, oblivious. What did you say? Gullible, and what? Self-centered, and all of those are true. I said clueless, but I think all of those are true. Esther, brave, courageous is what I said, but all of those things. Haman, prideful, evil, bitter. What? Self-centered, exactly, yeah, exactly. And Mordecai. What? Faithful, that's what I said, faithful, exactly. Wise, yeah. Yeah, Mordecai is sort of the one that kind of maps out the plan, the strategy for Esther to follow. Esther's just kind of following Mordecai's strategy that he laid out. Okay, you're gonna be the one that's gonna rescue our people, and here's how you're gonna do it. So he kind of lays all that out. She very well could have been killed. Absolutely. Yeah. An incredible amount of courage and faith on her part. So how does each provide an example of what to do or not to do as God's people? I mean, I think y'all can kind of go through that and figure that out. You know, King Ahasuerus, bad. Esther, good. Haman, bad. Mordecai, good. You know, so there's positive and negative examples in each of these. All right, I promised you